Alright, shall we look at the near light survey together? Let's see all of the stuff that you all have answered for me. I am very overwhelmed by the fact that 1,800 people responded to this survey. When I did this survey, I was thinking like there's gonna be, I don't know, maybe 300, 400 of you answering to this. If you're one of this 1,800, just know that you've made this survey so much more rich with the data that I'm able to use for you guys to see today. So this is super sweet stuff, alright? Let's take a look at all the questions that you all gave. So, the first thing that I asked is what's your player level account? And if you all see from here, right, there's still quite a fair bit of new players who's coming in, which I'm very happy to see. This percentage of new players over here, this is like a little over 10% of you who make up this population. And then the mid-game players is another 45%-ish. Mid-game is what I consider as like level 70 to 100-ish. So level 70, 100, that's like 45% of you, and then 100 to 120 is another 45% of you. So quite a huge bit. Later on, you're gonna see me split the responses in terms of the demographics that we have here. Afterwards, I asked everyone, how is everyone feeling towards the end of Near Light? So most people are feeling okay, but I was also pretty concerned that there were some people who were like really burnt out. Too bad in this survey, I didn't investigate like why you all were burnt out. I could have, but then maybe the next time around, if I do a survey again, then I can see what people may not like all that much. It's kind of like how I also want to figure out why some people don't like IS2. It may come off as a surprise to a good number of you here, but when I made my IS2 video in the comments right now, there are some people who were saying that they really don't like the roguelike gameplay. They feel that it wasn't very good in their experience of the game and everything, and it really perplexes me. Like, someday I want to read into these people and understand more like, what about this do they not like? So we'll see. But I mean, probably I'll ask that after the whole integrated strategies 2 thing has maybe lasted for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Alright? To the new players also, you all have answered a few extra questions. So I asked you all as to how you feel towards the level of fun in Arknights. And most new players have actually voted that it's really, really fun, right? It's towards 10, 9, and 8 over there. And then I reversed the question by saying, how do you feel towards the difficulty? So I made a bit of a mistake in my survey. Number 1 means that it's too hard, and number 10 means that it's too difficult. But I think I should have flipped the numbers. I should have said that 1 was too hard and 10 was too difficult. But the reason why I did it this way is because I wanted to mean that 1 to 5 are negative numbers and 6 to 10 are positive numbers. But I think if you look at these 2 questions alone, right, you'll see a bit of like an inverse trend. If you see over here, even though all the new players, you all voted that AK is really, really fun, but then you all also say that AK is very difficult. So I think it's interesting to see that. The joy of the game is the fact that it's a game that challenges you. And if you're not here for the challenge, you're here for anything else, and then if you feel like the challenge is just overtaking you, then maybe not the best game. But if not, yeah, it seems like a lot of you are enjoying it currently. Fun with pain. This is why I call the Arknights community a masochistic bunch. Do you think you'll still be playing the game for another 6 months? So most of the new players, 211 of them, most of them answered yes, which is a very humbling thing to see, with some of them saying not so sure. I mean, I imagine that those new players who probably won't play the game anymore, they probably don't even do this survey. I don't think they'll have the patience to do it because they probably don't have the patience for the game anymore. So yeah. Did you complete all the NL stages? So most people actually did. Even the new players, which surprises me quite a bit. So this is nice. I'm gonna skip out on these questions about like what's the hardest NL stage, since this is not all that interesting. And then which stage you can't complete is also not all that interesting. It's a variety. So did you complete all the NL EX stages? The NL EX stages and the NLS stages back then were the main reason why I wanted to do this survey. So I wanted to do this survey to have a gauge as to how the community is feeling about the difficulty of these stages. So let's take a look at them. 92% of the 1,800 people stated that they completed all the NL EX stages, which surprises me. What was the hardest EX stage? So this one is a bit of a no-brainer. Everyone pretty much voted NL EX8. NL EX8 was certainly a monstrous stage. If you all don't remember what was NL EX8, it's the one with Blood Knights, and then you had a lot of Blood Blades to handle in that stage as well. So later on, I asked you guys, please rate the difficulty of NL EX4 to NL EX8. How do we know if they're being honest? You mean in the survey? I mean, there could be dishonest answers. So the very reason why I want as many people as possible to do the survey was so that it negates the possibility of bad responses. Like, I can imagine there will be trolls, for example. You look at that, there are some people who voted that they didn't complete NL1, which confuses me till today. Like, why can't you complete NL1? But as long as there is a huge number of people answering and you all do your due diligence to answer truthfully to how you feel, you're helping the survey to be very interesting. Let's look at this. So I asked you guys to rate the difficulty of each of them, and I also asked you whether you referred to a guide. Now, I'm gonna show you guys some interesting data after this as to what I did with this information. So we're gonna skip out all this, but you can see a bit of the bell curve where NLEX4 is like in the middle. That's where the peak of it is. And then EX5 is still kind of in the middle. EX6 is still in the middle. EX7 starts to inch towards the right. And then EX8 does a big whoosh. Where everyone is saying, no, this is insanely difficult. So this is interesting to see. And then I did ask for the same thing for the S stages. If you also reach this point, if you say you didn't complete the EX stages, I then asked you guys what stage stopped you from progressing. And it's also a variety of stages that you see over here, although most people state that EX8 is the main problem of their gameplay. So for the S stages, I asked for the same thing. Surprisingly, more people didn't complete the S stages. I thought more people would be stuck in the EX one, but I guess the S stages had its own set of problems. So what was the hardest S stage in challenge mode? And most of you here may probably agree or disagree. I find this data quite interesting. So 45% of people voted for NLS3, 27% voted for NLS4, and 20% voted for NLS5. And for your note, each of these three stages were very different. NLS3 was the one where it had the Nova casters. NLS4 was the one with Blood Knight. And NLS5 was the one with the armorless snipers. So I'm gonna take the time to explain why the difficulty is felt for each type of player. We'll talk about that later. Let's look at more of the survey data again. So again, I asked you to rate the difficulty. This time, NLS1 and NLS2, the peak of the curve is a bit more to the left. And then NLS2 also kind of in the middle, kind of to the left as well. And then NLS3 onwards starts to swing to the right, along with NLS4 and NLS5. And then which stage stopped people from progressing? Most people got stuck in NLS3. So I want to talk very specifically about NLS3 in a bit. Now, before I show you all the interesting numbers, let's also look at these questions that I had. So which regular enemy was the most annoying or frustrating to deal with? I love this question that I asked you guys. So I asked you guys every type of enemy that you will witness in the event. And who was voted the most annoying? It's the snipers! 69.4% voted that the snipers were the most annoying beings in the event. Can you imagine seeing them again in CC8 that will come very soon? The second in line, although it's not even a close match, the second in line at 13.7% is the Nova casters. So this was very, very cool. Which regular enemy was the most difficult or hardest to fight? So this time I asked for difficulty. But then this is normal enemies. This is not bosses yet. The boss part will come later. So when it comes to the normal enemies, you all voted that the snipers were still the hardest. But interestingly, there's a closer match. So snipers are at 36.7%, while the Knights Mora enemies, Knights Mora were the backstabbers. Knights Mora was voted second at 26%, and then Nova casters were voted third, although very close to the Knights Mora enemies. Nova casters are the big diamond-shaped explosions. So there's that. Why does everyone hate snipers? The reason why people hate snipers is because the snipers were corrosion damage snipers, and a lot of the stages didn't allow you to hit the snipers that easily. The snipers will usually stand at a spot that is very safe and they're just shooting from a distance, which makes the snipers super annoying to fight against. So yeah, it's pretty bad stuff. Knights Mora enemies tend to stress people out because of the backstab. It simply punishes you if you don't take care of the light. So there's that. Look at this as well. Which regular enemy was most interesting for you? So this time I asked about interesting mechanic. And I think this is so interesting, but the person who was voted the most interesting was the Knights Mora enemies. And I agree. I think the Nextmora enemies were super unique. Never in AK have you seen anyone who do something so... dumb looking may not be the right word, but like, it's just so out of the blue that suddenly there's this guy who says, oh, you deploy your operators wrongly, I'm gonna punish you for that, right? So this is very cool to see that more than half of you, slightly over half, rated that the Explorer was the most interesting. And then the second most interesting was the Nova casters for you guys. Armorless snipers got a pretty low rating of 10%. Of course, the rest are not as interesting. The Hibernators, they just sleep. This will remind you of Dark Knight's Memoir, because we had sleeping enemies back there. And then there were the Assassins, the ones that increase attack in the dark. They're not that bad, although they might be bad in CC. Crossbowmen also not that bad. Gloom Pincers also not that bad. But yeah, snipers are voted much less. I mean, the snipers are a little understandable as well, because this is not the first time that we see corrosion damage. The first introduction of corrosion damage in Arknights would be the Dorsalus event. I mean, we had sanity damage. Sanity damage was under tights, but corrosion specifically was Dorsalus. And Dorsalus had so many enemies who deal that type of damage. So I can understand why people say it's not that interesting. We look at the mini-boss and the bosses. So which mini-boss or boss was the most annoying or frustrating to deal with? So you want to know who received the biggest award? You would have thought it was Blood Knight. No, it's the Blood Blades. You all voted the Blood Blades to be the most annoying mini-boss to deal with in the event. No one likes the Blood Blades. The Blood Blades were picked in NLEX8CM. And I think that's very much the reason why so many people have voted it so high, because it's that bad. And then the second most voted was the NLS5 bosses. NLS5 were the Lazarites, Roy and Monique. You all rated them to be the second most annoying. And the third most annoying that you all rated was Blood Knight. Can you believe Blood Knight is third rated? You all said that the freaking corrosion damage snipers and the Blood Blades are more annoying than the boss himself. Yeah, I don't think the boss was annoying as well. He's just a huge ass stat stick. Very high defense, very high health, very high attack, that's about it. But then the others, oh my god. Imagine seeing Blood Knight in the same stage as Roy and Monique. Would you guys be ready for that? Y'all won't be screaming at the boss. Y'all be screaming at why are there snipers in the stage. Y'all have to be so thankful NLS5 wasn't like a bomb of every type of enemies in the same stage. So there's that. Which mini boss or boss was the most difficult or hardest to fight against? Y'all voted this time that Blood Knight was the hardest to fight against, which I agree. Blood Blades was rated second. Blood Knights had the worst stats out of everyone, so this is understandable. And then Blood Blades being close second is also really, really good. Lazarites and Monique were rated much lower at 8%. Then, which mini boss or boss was the most interesting that, or which one surprised you? So I love this data the most because everyone had a good fair share. Blood Knight was rated the highest in terms of most interesting, but then there were a lot of close positions. Viviana, Candlelight Viviana was rated second, which I didn't think that she was anything too special. She was just like another Nova caster, but I have a feeling maybe people thought it was interesting because they really like Viviana, maybe through the storyline and all, so that's why they voted her second. And then the third rated one was Bloodblade to be on the interesting level. The fourth rated one was Tola. So Tola was the red color backstabber. It was the elite version of the backstabber. So you all rated that later on. And then following up, the last one that you all rated was Lazarites. I love how in all of these, Armorless Knight was rated the most annoying and sometimes the hardest to deal with, but you all called them the least interesting. What kind of like direct flip is this in the answers? One point you all say they're the hardest and you're like, nah, but they ain't interesting though, they're just fucking annoying. So that's that. Then did you spend on any Nearlight exclusive in-game packs? This one I start to ask about spending, just out of curiosity. I might do another spending survey in the future, but this time 70% of you guys said no, you didn't spend in this event, and another 30% said yes. So I asked like, what did you guys buy? Surprisingly, less than half of you stated that you bought the Douglas Purse. By the way, this is out of 555 people. Okay. Do you all buy the senior operator training package? Again, less than half. Now the big problem here is I don't know if this 44.5% is largely the same with the 43.4%. I didn't went to study this part. But for most of you who said that you bought something from the event, did you buy the Rhodes Island Hate Hunting Pack or the 6-star selector ticket? 86.8%, 482 of you said yes. Yostar, if you need to take notes, you should take notes now, alright? Just keep giving us 6-star selector ticket, we will always buy them. It gives you money. We want our 6 stars. Thank you very much. Do you buy the Casimir's major package and much less? 36% of you guys stated that you all bought this. And this particular question surprised me a lot. So is your monthly card topped up for this month when you buy some or all the packs stated above? I would have thought that most of the people who bought over here are monthly card buyers, but there's apparently 20% of you who stated you probably bought something, most likely the 6-star selector, and you didn't buy the monthly card. So this was a huge surprise to me. It doesn't mean that the people who are dolphins, whales, ikan bilis, whichever fish you are that's paying money in the game, it doesn't directly mean that you all are already monthly card buyers. Some of you are just saving for what you think is the best value, which I think obviously to a lot of people in the community, the 6-star selector is the best value. But yeah, this was very, very interesting info to see. But I have to say, I also cannot believe this statistic right here. Can you guys believe it? As in, it's not that I don't believe it in the sense of I don't understand that AK has a free-to-play community. I know that we have a huge free-to-play community, but you all need to compare this particular graph with other gacha games. Have you all seen 1,800 people, 70% of this 1,800? Wait, let me double check. 70% is like 1,300 of you taking this survey, telling me you don't pay for anything. And yet you are still happily playing this game. It really is a testament to how free to play this game is, for the fact that you guys are very comfortable. But of course, I'm also a little bit concerned, because I'm like, oh, this feels so sad. Because, you know, AK is trying so hard to at least make some money out of, you know, their game development costs and everything. But, like, people are not really spending all that much. Then again, my viewer base is mostly new players. I wouldn't say so. You gotta remember what's the statistics at the start of my stuff. Remember this? Look at that. 45% of the people who did my survey was more than level 100. Another 45% is more than level 70. This survey was done 2.5 months ago. So I kind of do wish that this percentage was a little bit more different if I were to ask the same thing again in the future, referring to the number of people who wants to pay, because it was a little bit frightening. If I regularly check the monthly revenue for Arknights, and was still the third smallest server. Of course, CN being the biggest, JP being the second biggest, and then we are the third in line, along with KR and TW. But I feel like we are at a point where we're earning what is considered a good amount to keep the game sustainable and living. But it would be nice to see it grow even more. And I kind of hope that when the release of the anime comes, or the what is that? Enfield. When Enfield comes as well, hopefully there might be some change. Yeah. If you were financially independent, you would love to. Yeah. I do hope that you guys can consider just not even maybe the exclusive packs, even the monthly card. I will always advise people who spend in the game to possibly get the monthly card. I see a little long comment there. Perhaps because a lot of us are experienced, we don't feel the need to spend money because we can survive with our ops. But if a low-level doctor may feel the itch to spend to quickly boost themselves. But then again, that's your view. And I don't disagree with you that I think the league game players, some of you may have played the game so much to the point where you feel like you don't need anything else anymore. There's not really a point to spend. Spending is just speeding up your progress of building operators, which technically is the case. You spend in this game just to speed up your progress in your account. But there is only so much you need to speed up, because like I said in my updated episode 3 video, by the time you hit about player account level 60, you're pretty much done in the game. That's it. So anything else is just like a boost to your own player experience. That's about it. I think whether or not you all want to spend is really on your own accord. To me, I'm very happy spending. Like, until now, I have no regrets. I've probably spent about maybe I think I've spent about 800 SGD, which is equivalent to 700 USD. 700 USD in this game. And I can very happily say, even if this game crashes, I'm very happy to have spent the money. Because, like, I enjoyed my time here. My life was made out here. I wouldn't mind giving cash as a form of thank you to the developers for giving me a good time. So yeah. A lot of time we like to say that AK does the reverse of other gacha games. It's not a game that forces you to spend. It's a game that makes you feel like this game is so generous, this game is working so hard, that because the game is doing so well, I want to spend for the game. Alright, let's look at the remaining questions. Oh yeah, I apologize that I can't read all these comments here. I will probably have to take a day to read all of this stuff, because some of you have sent me very long, heartfelt comments. I feel like seeing so many people, you know, when you do a survey, and then there's always the any last things you want to say, most of you here wouldn't even write anything, right? If you do a school survey or, I don't know, a company survey, would you even fill up the last blank? No, right? But then y'all freaking filled it up. 1,300 of y'all wrote something in here. And that surprises me so hard, because I'm only expecting like, what, 100 or 200 of you to write something? It's not even a required question, you see? So I'm surprised. It feels like there is a lot of you who may have something special that you want to say to me. Maybe at some other point in time, I'll do like I don't know, drop me a comment that you want me to read, and then maybe I'll read it for the sake of a video. Alright? So we will see what happens then. Yeah. Okay? Now, I said that I have surprising data that I want to show to you guys. So you remember all this difficulty stuff over here, and then I also asked you guys if you referred to a guide. Now, I got the help of a very nice person to actually clean up the data for me. I legit mean clean up the data. So this one is a never seen before chart right over here. Let me boot it up for you guys. So this is an Excel spreadsheet of everything, every single response. We color coded them, we sorted them out, and what we got was this. So what I did, with the help of someone else, is that, okay, you all can see the number of responses for each of them. So as I said, about 211 people here, 785 and 855. This is the number of people who did the survey. The number of people who completed the NLEX stages. So I want you all to pay attention to this, yeah? And to those of you veteran players who keep advising new players like, oh my god, this event is so easy, please take a look at this. Level 1 to level 70, only 56.40% of people from this level range completed all the EX stages. And then you look at 70 to 100 is 91.72%, and then 100 to 120 is 98.13%. So I don't really like it when a lot of people like kinda use their experience to tell someone else that this wouldn't be too bad. A lot of people don't get that level of empathy to understand that new players tend to have a lot of problems with the game because they don't have as good of an operator. So there's that. Oh yeah, but to the 119 of you who completed everything, that's very nice. Congratulations to you. But we are gonna see some interesting numbers here. So remember I asked, did you use a guide? And then I asked you to rate the difficulty. Now, for all these graphs over here, let's give this example. Alright? I took each person's score, I added it, I summed it up, and then I divided by the number of responses. By doing that, that creates what I call an average difficulty. So, if we look over here, this number at the bottom is the average difficulty across all 1,850 people who responded. So I took everybody's score, I divided it by 1,850 people. This was the average difficulty. Then, across the line, this is when I sort it out by the level. So if, let's say you're level 100 to 120, I ask you to rate the difficulty again. 70 to 100, I ask you to rate the difficulty. Then, for the people who use guide, I ask to rate the difficulty. Never use guide, I ask to rate again. And then what is this in the middle? This in the middle is if you are someone who's level 1 to 70 and you use the guide. And if you're someone who's level 70 to 100 and you use the guide. You all get my point? So that's how you read this particular table. Okay, now I have to say, just for NLEX4, there's a very anomalous data which I found hilarious. I like how NLEX4, the new players who used the guide said the stage was easier than the level 70 to 100 players who used the guide, rating it at a harder difficulty than the new players. That's not supposed to happen. What happened to you guys here? Hey, you're supposed to represent. That's not how it should work. Yeah, but even so, right? When I first did this survey, I thought that the average difficulty for those who use the guide will be lower than never use the guide. So let me explain why I thought that. I thought the people who use the guide will have a more comfortable time to play the event since they have something to refer to. But apparently it's opposite of my hypothesis, opposite of what I guessed, because it seems that it's more like because people find it very difficult that they use the guide. So what I'm saying is I thought these two numbers here will reverse, but it's not. It is actually the people who use the guide that often rates the stage to be harder. You feel like you only need guides until you have a certain decent bunch of operators. Well, you can say that, but then there are people who's level 100 to 120 using a guide. So, yeah. But yeah, you all can see that the numbers become pretty consistent throughout the board. Apart from NLEX4, usually the difficulty drops according to the player level, right? If you all notice here, it keeps dropping over time. Down and down. And then for the people who use the guide, they will more often rate that the stage is harder compared to those who didn't use the guide. You like the fact that you use the guide would generally mean you think the stage is harder, right? No, it was pretty consistent. So there is no time that the difficulty rated by those who didn't use the guide being higher than those who use the guide. It kind of goes to say that the population of players who use a guide will always think that the stage is hard. And therefore, I often get comments in the guides where people like to tell me, I use a Asserter, I use this operator, and then I thought this stage was very easy, so I don't know why you produce a guide for people. A lot of people need to understand, if you see like 10,000, 20,000 people watching a fucking guide, and you think the stage is easy, that's just you who think the stage is easy. Those 10, 20,000 people who clicked in on the guide need the guide, no matter what level they are. So there's that. But let me zoom out from here, just to show you guys something, whether it's consistent as well. So remember that NLEX8 was rated to be the hardest stage. So based on average difficulty, it is rated to be the hardest stage across the board comparing to every other stage over here. Alright? So this is very, very interesting to see. With NLEX8 rated at 7.7. I think there's a summary page as well. Yeah, there's a summary page. So you can see over here. Oh no, this summary page is only for the people with levels. Yep. Alright. Now, let's take a look at NLS. Okay? So NLS had another round of me asking you guys what's the difficulty of the stage, and the thing stays consistent. As the level goes up, the difficulty goes down. And then those who use a guide will think that it's harder. The difficulty of NLS1 and S2 were rated pretty low, even less than 5 out of 10. But then, when I get to the NLS3, 4, and 5, notice that the numbers get like really high. And the new players tend to rate NLS3 very hard, even some of the mid-game players as well. If I compare this with NLEX8, so this is NLEX8 over here, you can kind of see that, yeah, it's rated to be quite a big number. But, interestingly, the EX8 number was still rated to be higher than NLS3. So based on average difficulty, EX8 technically is the hardest stage in the community's opinions, based on the difficulty that you all rated for the sake of my survey. Because NLEX8 is rated at 7.70, NLS3 was rated at 7.06. This is a nice and easy way to truly judge what is the hardest stage. I might do this in the future to compare every single stage in Arknights. Maybe. So that we can doubly confirm if WDEX8 is really the hardest stage by the community. Because I keep hearing that. And I don't think WDEX8 is the hardest. But we'll see. Alright? And then NLS4 was rated the third hardest. And NLS5 was rated the fourth hardest. Alright? So these are all very interesting numbers for you guys to see. I think for those of you who's watching on YouTube right now, I'm probably like screenshotting this like particular page, and then you all can pause the video to take a look at this part, just so that you want to read the numbers a bit more. Let me just show you all this also. Level 1 to 70, 37.91% of people in this level range completed S stages. This number is lower than the EX stages. Notice that? 56.4%, 37.9%. And then afterwards, for level 70 to 100, it's bad as well. It's 91% in level 70 to 100 and 81%. I didn't expect it. I actually thought the S stages were better than the EX stages, but I have a feeling I know why the S stages are causing a problem. So let's do a review of the event stages here. Let me bring you all back to NLEX8 and then NLS3 as well. If you look at the map of NLEX8, you all would have known this is quite a nightmarish stage that I'm sending you all back to. The stage where you had to deal with the blood blades, the annoying things, so many thick enemies that you have to kill after the boss is gone. This was full of pain, right? I do agree. I think this is probably one of the hardest stage for you to encounter. And based on the community, you all also stated that this is hard. It wasn't that hard. To those of you who said that this wasn't hard, just understand you are in the category of people who thinks that it's on the easier side. But there are a lot of people who think that it's hard. But I think it's more interesting to talk about the NLS3 stages, because the NLS stages had quite a bit of things going on. Let me open up all the stage maps. Okay, so NLS3 was rated to be difficult. And I think the survey data is actually enough for you to theorize why this stage was hard. A lot of people who think this is easy, you all ask me, why is this stage hard? And I'm going to answer that now. So, if you notice over here in the S data, within the S data itself, notice how a lot of people couldn't complete the stage. And back in my data over here as well, the stage that most people couldn't complete was NLS3 out of all the S stages. Now, the reason why I think this stage caused a havoc was that this stage was, in my opinion, the first time that if you don't have a Pioneer Vanguard, not even one, if you don't have 2 Pioneer Vanguards, this stage was really stressful. Most of the time when I handheld this stage, my biggest problem was DP. Because there are 3 lanes, you needed to block all 3 lanes fast. You all remember? Like, immediately there was enemies on the top, immediately there was enemies on the bottom. In no time at all, suddenly enemies also start appearing in the middle. You needed to protect all 3 lanes as quick as possible. So, in my opinion, what was causing a problem to new players or even mid-game one is that if you didn't have good DP generators to start your stage, and it's not just good DP generators that can survive. If you start the stage with a freaking Texas at E1, your Texas freaking dies. Because Texas is too weak. Those CM enemies punches the hell out of your Pioneer Vanguards. You needed damn good Pioneer Vanguards that can hold the line. So, I think this was what caused this stage a huge problem. Even if you had a standard bearer, it was still a hard stage. Especially those people who don't have like M3 Myrtle, M3 Elysium, you only have a rank 7 one. it was a nightmare. Too many things to deploy. Everything was expensive. Ifrit is expensive. Blaze is expensive. Chen Outer is expensive. You just couldn't deploy anyone fast. So, to the people who say it's easy, I feel that it's easy because you had what you need. But to the people who say that it's hard, I feel the struggle. Because I held you guys, and I saw what was problematic with this stage. It was the most micromanaging stage in the entire event. Somehow, okay, no, I can't say it's the most micromanaging because EX8 was a thing, but it was bad. The micromanagement requirement was high. So this is pretty much the reason as to why I feel that NLS3 was a tough time. I made Arcadia episode 2 before NLS3 appeared. So in Arcadia, no, sorry, not Arcadia episode 2, Arcadia episode 1. So Arcadia episode 1 was the one where I taught you guys to build your first guide. I felt bad because this was one of the first few stages that I thought, damn, if you don't have 2 Pioneer Vanguards, this was just way too hard. And then came along a second stage that also made me feel like, if you don't have 2 Pioneer Vanguards, it was also pretty bad. A second stage that needed 2 Pioneer Vanguards was NLEX5. NLEX5 had a challenge condition that said DP regen down. And holy hell, whenever the DP regen goes down, you're like, if you don't have good Vanguards, you're in pain. And then later on, in the recent Break the Ice event, Break the Ice had a stage which was BIEX7, right? BIEX7, same thing. DP regen goes down. So those stages are just all very pain. And not building good Vanguards was just gonna hurt you a lot. So yeah, I will still stand by my Arcadia episode 1 where I advise new players to only build 1 Pioneer Vanguard. But I hate NLS3. NLS3 was really one of the stages where if you don't have 1 Standard Bearer, 2 Pioneer Vanguards, you're in pain. A lot of pain. So at least now I get it out of the way as to explain why NLS3 was honestly a hard stage. It was one of those stages where if you don't have the ingredients, you are struggling like hell. Which this main ingredient was Vanguards. It's just like how you don't go to a drone stage without snipers, especially if you're a new player. I mean, if you got a Taunts, you got a Silver Ash, yeah, good to be you. But if you're someone new, you wanna play East Armory with no snipers, you're gonna be crying. Think about that. So, same idea. Just one of those stages where no Vanguards, you'll never have a good time. The caster damage was also a factor. I think the caster damage added an element of difficulty to the new players, because this stage tested you on 2 things. The first test was the DP test. The second test was the bait test. You need to learn how to bait the enemies. And newbies tend to not know how to do that because you're new to the game. You wouldn't think like using gravel continuously is the way to go. So yeah, I do genuinely think this was a hard stage. This was a hard stage to teach people a form of gameplay that they don't understand. Okay, let's look at the remaining S stages. So there's S4 as well. This was rated the 3rd hardest stage. And this one had Blood Knight as well. But it's not that bad. Thankfully, the Blood Blades were not buffed this time around. So the more bearable, there is a hole that you can use in the stage as well. So that hole is very nice to use a puller right over there. And you can basically stall the boss kind of okay within this stage. This was a better time. Some people will say this is easier than EX8 since there's no Blood Blade CM. And then S5 was the one stage that I thought this was going to be bad. I thought this was going to be rated the hardest, and I was wrong. You all actually thought this stage was easy. There was 2 ways for you to do this stage. The first way is you use defenders and tank out Roy and Monique. That's it. That's the first way that you do it. You try to rotate your operators, let a Blaze or Mud Rock try to kill everyone. But it's very RNG because you need to figure out how to juggle your operators. But the second way to do this stage, which was my guide that I made for you guys, was to build to the left. So what I mean by build to the left is that you keep deploying operators towards the left side of the map. You spread the light out, and then you place a damn good operator who can kill Roy and Monique on the left side of the stage. That way, you can clean up the snipers and not be stressed about needing to like tank the damage. And I think it's because of that guy where I taught you guys how to build to the left that more people thought this was easier than NLS3. So I originally thought this was going to be a very bad stage, but spawn camping seemed to have made people realize this was actually pretty okay. And anyways, if that was all, that's the entire Near Light survey. I hope that you all enjoyed doing the survey with me, and thank you all for making the data so interesting. I left a link down in the description of my video because this is on YouTube. If you want to look at the results yourself, you can go and click on that link. You can scroll through all of this. You won't have access to this result though, so I put this in like one part of the video. You can pause the video and then give it a read and all. Alright? And that's it. That's everything from me. Are there another kind of survey that y'all wish that I did? Is there something about the minds of AK players that y'all want to hear about? So what, a survey every limited event? I'll think about it. It's a lot of work to do surveys because I need to clean up the data and I need to figure out how to compile them. So yeah, I'll have to think very hard whether I want to do this or not. Survey every event is too long. Yeah, I'll have to see if I have the patience to do it. So yeah, okay. We'll be out.